Marcus Dupuy is going to talk to us. He's presenting on the body, mind, and soul relationship, and a workshop leader in the realm of self-empowerment. He is a translator of the book, The Art of Listening to Life, which is an insight into how to interpret the messages that life is constantly sending us in an effort to help navigate a smoother life journey. His investigation started in ashrams in India in the early 80s and has evolved into developing courses for helping people to understand the purpose of adversity in our lives. There are certain tricks to becoming conscious participants in the creative process of our lives. Life is a map, and we are the map makers. Marcus is an entrepreneur with many successes in the business world and has been described as an agent of change. He is also a photographer, a recording artist, and the voice in the audiobook Adventure of Soul. He is also the host of Perceptions, a radio program that investigates various aspects of the human experience through interviews and authors, specialists, and luminaries in their respective fields. In his own words, also, he sent the following regarding his topic. The naming of my presentation can be The Art of Listening to Life.
Should we start with a standing ovation?
Ended up reading the whole email. Just ideas, but good. I'm glad that I didn't say too much superfluous. Some of you might actually remember me and know me as Mark, because I actually have been here since 1988. I went away for many years, 10 years, 11 years, 12 years. I lived in Spain and Mexico, and Canmore is my second town. And so I've been back here now for a year and a half. And so I'll just pull out the book here so that you can see it. So just a little history on how I got involved. I met the author of this book. This book is a book that was written in Spanish, and I translated it to English. And through time, I got more and more involved with the school, Adventure of the Soul, and started to lead seminars and workshops, mostly in Spain and Mexico, but now we're doing them here we've done some in Nelson. We've had great success in Kelowna, and it's the beginning here. So, what is the art of listening to life, and what do the words mean? Let's start with the art, because we are creative artists. We're creative artists of our life. We're the creative artists of our bodies. We're the creative artists of everything that goes on in our life. A lot of us have lost contact with the fact that we're actually participants in this creation. And so we lose contact with the fact that we're actually, a lot of people like to use the word co-creator, that we're co-creators. I find with a lot of the thought leaders of the day, we're actually dropping the co-creator, just going with creator, because it's that direct. And how is it that direct? Why would we, how do we come to understand that? When a society and when a group of people are ready to hear certain messages and certain ideas, they come. So years ago we had The Secret. The Secret came out about 20 years ago with all these ideas on following your heart, follow your dreams, the law of attraction. But they're all ideas that reach a certain point and they're just a nice idea. So following your dreams, for instance, in order to follow your dreams, you have to have one. And you know what? I ended up finding out that most people don't have one. Or that the art of finding what that dream is and coming up with the purpose and the idea is actually the challenge. So it's very nice when someone tells you follow your dreams, but there's a gap there. There's another idea that they delivered back then was the law of attraction. The law of attraction, well, guess what? The law of attraction doesn't work without the law of intention in front of it. Because the law of attraction can't work if there's nothing to attract to. So the law of intention, which is related to having that dream, is a process that we are very much involved in. I'm going to go a little deeper with the thought idea and how thoughts create things. Everything that we are is vibration. We're all just vibrating atoms. Everything right down to our thoughts, ideas, everything energetically, that's all we are. So thoughts are actually vibration. They're actually something that is the beginning and the source of all creation, really. So just to sort of look at a physical side of things, if we look at anything, absolutely anything you look at in this room, anything, it doesn't matter what you look at. It first started in our imagination. It first started as a thought. It had to be a thought first, and then it was made into being. It was made into something. So the idea that we are creators of what's going on is very much right down to physics, right down to that idea that we actually create through our thoughts. Thoughts become things. Thoughts become what we want it to become. So we actually have a commonality, for instance, between the Buddha and the Bible. The words, what you think you become, are in the Bible. What a man thinketh, the man becometh. I can't remember if that's the proper English. Close enough, eh? And, you know, in the Buddha's words, what you think, you become. Why do we not pay more attention to those words? Those are really powerful words, but somehow up on the pulpit, those aren't the words that are pointed out. What we think, we become. We got all kinds of ideas around it too. Be careful what you wish for. And it's true. Be careful what you wish for, because if you wish for it enough and you think about it enough, you'll create it. Even if it's disease, even if it's discomfort, even if it's a situation that is difficult to deal with and that you don't like, feeding it, it actually will keep on perpetuating it. But we won't that detail as much right now. So that's what the art is. The art is that we're the creative artists, and how do we do that? I started to go into a little bit there with what we think we become. So the art of listening. What is listening? We always hear that it's good to be a good listener. And it's true. We learn more through listening than we do through talking, just generally. And so we think that listening perhaps is just what comes in through our ears, but the art of listening is so much broader than that. It's everything that's going on in our life, everything that's going on in our circumstances. One of the first things that it's important to reawaken is our ability to hear our inner voice. Because we have all kinds of answers coming to us like that. The presentation that you talked about yesterday talked about intuition. Intuition is massive. Intuition is a huge communicator that's telling us all kinds of things, but we've sort of lost the ability to interpret that. The other thing that's important about the art of listening, and especially with intuition, is that it's very instantaneous. It's very in the moment. It's now. Once the rational mind shows up for the argument, it can go anywhere. Our supercomputer here is just like, okay, I'm going to give you 5 or 6 points on why you should do this, and I'm going to give you about 10 points on why you shouldn't. And then goes back and forth, and you might have noticed that the longer you take to make a decision very often, the harder it becomes. Because there's this quagmire of rational mind information. So intuition is actually right in the moment. It's something that comes within seconds. In fact, here's one of the little techniques that we work with is when you ask life and ask your soul, or ask out there just a big question, you need to make a decision. We talk about intuition being something that happens right away. We talk about that initial impulse, what happens right there. We actually have scientific proof now in background that shows, the neuroscientists can actually show that when a person gets asked a question, the heart lights and sensors come on. up to 2-3 seconds before the brain sensors come on. We have a book called M-Braining. It's called M-Braining means multiple braining. And the book itself shows studies that come from everywhere. So Harvard, Yale, all the great universities of the world. And they show that when a person is asked a question with all the sensors that are there, that the light sensors come on for the heart first, and up to 3 seconds before. So what now we know, and something that we've known for a long time but we've forgotten, we seem to be sort of a society that's very sort of prone to amnesia. We don't remember stuff that we've actually known all along. For instance, neural material, so there's the stuff that makes up our neocortex, our brain, the synapses, the thoughts, the actual electricity that runs through us. It actually runs down here, wraps around our heart, goes all the way through our gut. So you might ask yourself, well, why do we say I had a bad gut feeling about that? What does your gut have to do with your brain? What does your gut have to do with what you're thinking? Well, it turns out it has a lot to do with it, actually. There's brain material, actual brain synapses, thinking, electricity flowing through the thoughts that are going all the way through here. The Japanese have maps of it that show the gut and where it all flows through the stomach. They've had it for centuries. I've got some really nice maps from a doctor from the 1800s here in North America. Had it all mapped out, showing that it's there. So I just went into that segue of science because science, when we have science backing us up, science seems to be the religion of the day. It's like we're so hooked on science right now. Science says so, it must be so. Well, again, we're going to get past science and it's going to go, okay, well, science explains this whole physical realm, but there's another part to this. So what we've been saying about intuition, now we actually have scientists going, yeah, look at that. It actually is happening. There's actually thoughts coming from here before they come from there. So that's the art of listening, is listening to everything that's happening. So the circumstances, we have signs, signals. We have these occasions, you know, or occurrences or situations, circumstances that come into our life. What do they really mean? Why are they happening? This inner voice is communicating with us through all kinds of things because it can't communicate in English. It can't communicate in language. It communicates through situations. Signs, signals, coincidences, synchronicity. How does synchronicity, how do coincidences come together to just make things happen? You might have had a bunch of coincidences and synchronicities come together from a trip to Victoria. Right?
There was dozens of them.
So what is reawakening the ability to hear the inner voice is the ability to actually recognize those. Because sometimes we'll have the signs come and we'll just say, yes, this is what you should be doing, but I just missed it. It was there, but, and when we develop this ability to actually hear this inner voice and hear what's going on, what the messages are from life, then it becomes easier to interpret what should be done next. But it's reawakening that ability, which is in those first seconds. This is the challenge of it. Because once you let it go by, it becomes a little more difficult to track, to get back to. Because again, the rational mind, which we're mostly made of, it is the predominant dimension that we're living in. Sure takes over. Takes over and defines everything. We label things. We define, this is what this means. We use our education, our social upbringing, popular culture, all the definitions that we're given end up influencing the way that we even feel about things.
Do you find that that's predominantly a modern Western sort of thing? Like, are you running into cultures where that's not the case?
I will tell you that Canada, United States, Northern Europe, the most educated countries of the world, are the biggest problem when it comes to rational mind. So I'd say that education is a big part of it because our education is actually formation. It's actually programming. If you turn on Shaw Cable, turn on your TV, it says programming. Right there. Right on the screen, it says programming. I'm okay with that. I'll go for this program. No, I'll go for that. Today I'm going over this programming. So that programming shapes up the rational mind, our thoughts. And in fact, that is my observation, is that the more educated countries are the bigger challenge. And interesting, you know, because I've been doing workshops for many years in Mexico. Mexico is an extremely Catholic country. We're talking about a country that, you know, where Catholicism, the Pope, the Church, is extremely strong still. In our presentations, in our workshops, when we talk about connecting with our own creative force, our own participation in creating our life, all of the ideas that I'm talking about right here now, we have way less resistance than here. Here it's like, well, it can't be like that. I studied this, and I read this book, and I did this workshop, and I did that. And so it becomes this great big debate. Whereas in a country where I thought there'd be more resistance, they're actually okay with it. Because one of the things that we're dealing with is the art of listening to life. What is life? In this case, life is a nice, light, open word. But it's source. It's universal intelligence. It's universal force. It's everything. It's God. A little more difficult using the word God these days because it's attached to certain modalities, right? Certain ways of thinking, but it's the same thing. In fact, when we get into fighting and debating vocabulary, very often we miss the point. There's this point in behind, and here we are, you know, is it God, is it source? Well, whatever, because it's up to you. We understand everything that we understand from our own center. It's just the way it is. There are no answers from the outside in terms of answers for you. There's just guidance. There's guidance and information. That guidance and that information we intake, we take in, we digest, we assimilate, and then we understand how things work from our own perspective. It's as simple as that. So whenever you want some magic pill from the outside, one of the things I often get with this book is just give me the magic pill, just give me the point. It's like, whoa, there are a lot of points going on in here, right? One of the great points, for instance, is that disease and conditions and anything that shows up in your body is got a purpose. It has a purpose and a message for you. So I can't have you. This disease came into my body. I had no control over that. It's a virus that came in. Now I'm sick. You know, one of the things that we deal with a lot is people's physical ailments and conditions that they've had for many years. Some people have been going to a doctor for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they still have no answers on what it is that's going on. The body is a mechanism of communication. It is communicating to us all the time. And so it doesn't matter what kind of condition you have, because our medical system and our scientific way of approaching the body is very isolated. We'll go, it's in the finger, it's in the foot, it's in the knee, look, it's over here. And let's take a rash, for instance. You got a rash, you got a red rash. It's the skin, it's the rash. Well, I'll just give you a glimpse into one of the things that we do, but we always go, what is the body saying to you? What is the communication? What is the purpose of that condition or disease? So the rash, it's red. Turns out that emotion is the most powerful energy for creation. Emotion is very powerful. It has the power to make us cry, it has the power to shudder, it's electric, it's energy. So people who repress their emotions and don't experience their emotions in a proper way end up storing it. So if we're storing hot emotions, anger, frustration, storing hot emotion, that hot emotion accumulates in the body and it needs to find a way out. It's trying to find a way out. A rash is fire. A rash is red. A rash is itchy. A rash is hot. That's hot emotion making its way out of the body. Now, it can do it through many ways. Our bodies are all different, so we express ourselves differently, and it gets out different ways. But what do? We throw cream on it, lotion on it, put out the fire. Gee, put out the fire. Well, it turns out the fire is being fueled from the inside out. And we're still trying to put it out this way. So that's just an example, but I mean, it goes right down to every condition and everything that we experience in this life.
That
So-
sounds kind of like homeopathy.
Homeopathy, to a degree, yeah. And in fact, you know, the homeopathic dictionary, we use it a little bit for, you have something happening in a part of your body, could be reflecting something else in your life. The Chinese have their dictionary. There's several organizations. There's Louise Hay, some of you might know about Louise Hay and her, same thing. But what happens with these dictionaries, and we had one at one time, because this book here comes from a science called Medicine of the Soul, Secret Code of the Body. And people got hung up on the definitions. And so, well, it's in my knee, so it must have something to do with this. And so what happens is that each one of us is so individual that we express everything differently. So for one person, their tension might come out in a headache. Another person will come out in a rash. Another person will come out different ways. So it's all about tracing back, what is the purpose of that condition? What is the purpose of that disease? That's one thing that homeopathy doesn't do, or a lot of the modalities won't go further back into why it happened. So for instance, I had a therapist asking me the other day, well, how do you deal with someone who's got a back problem because of the car accident? Car accident created the back problem. Well, our question is, what did the car accident happen? We go back to what is going on in connecting all the dots in a person's life. We had a session, we had a workshop and a couple of consultations with a woman in Kelowna just a few days ago. Beautiful workshop happened up there. A lot of connections, a lot of, wow, is this really what's going on? So we had a woman with a knee problem, a knee issue, went through all the details of her life, what was going on in her life, what that represents. Of course, we can't go into that right here, right now, it's too many details. But she had booked a surgery for knee replacement, and it was 1.5 years for her surgery. And her surgery's next week. And after the workshop, she canceled the knee surgery. She was able to connect. She saw that when she connected the dots to what is going on in her life and what her body's telling her, that the pain would just disappear. And then, of course, it would come back because it's still being generated from the inside out. There's a lot of things to resolve. When we talk about resolution, there's a lot of different ways to do that. That is, in fact, the crux and the harder part of it. It's like that follow your dream thing. Well, follow your dream, you gotta have one. You gotta work it back. Law of attraction only works a law of intention. So you always gotta work back and reverse engineer this thing. And that's what the art of listening to life is. And that's what we do. So I could go on for hours, but
I'd just
I'd
like
like
to
to,
comment on this too.
questions, yeah.
Yeah,
Or
is
comments.
that, one of the hardest things about people healing themselves is them putting limits on themselves, sort of thing. A person will think, oh, well, that sounds good, but gee, maybe it doesn't apply to me because, you know, maybe this happened eons ago for me and it's probably not possible. So getting past that thought that there are limitations, you know, it's like when a person goes to a foreign country because there's a healer and they're really all set to be healed. And their belief is there, and in that instant, they can be healed. They can walk away and it's completely gone. It's because of acceptance. And one of the hardest things to do, which doesn't really make sense, but one of the hardest things to do is to let go of your disease. Because the person itself has to accept that moment of release within themselves
That's right.
without limit.
Yeah. So as conscious participants and creators of everything that we are, we have to give ourselves that power. Sometimes we use external aids, like that healer, but it's actually our inner faith and our own belief system that this is going to work, that actually works. And then we assign it to the outside world. They did it. He did it, she did
The
it, this
prescription
drug
did
did
it.
it, right? So I took that pill, everything went away. Well, guess what? When that person took that pill, there was so much faith in that pill that the endocrine system, the actual glandular network that's within us, produced the chemicals necessary for the body to do whatever it needed to do. Because our natural state is a state of balance. Our natural state is a state of health. That's our natural place. So when there's an unbalance, when there's a condition, we have to ask ourselves, what's generating that? And so that's really tuning into the self-empowerment. And if there's anything, if this paradigm is anything, it's a paradigm of self-empowerment. It's a paradigm of going, okay, I'm a conscious participant in this, I gotta do this. So an example that I used to give years ago was what you just did. Well, same example, except it was with Jesus Christ. People would go to these healing things, and Christ would heal them. Yeah. Well, Christ didn't heal them on his own. There had to be, the barriers that you said were up, had to come down. And if a person needs an external modality, an external belief system to help them get there, fine, it's all good. It's all good. But really, when we go right back to it, it all starts in our own center.
Do you use a process, or can you say something about how you facilitate that process where people can make those interconnections about what that deeper meaning is for them?
We do have a few practices, a few exercises and ideas on how to get there. One of the primary ideas is that the body, again, is supposed to be working perfectly, and if it isn't, we ask why. We actually go into the function of the body part and what that's reflecting, what the outside world is reflecting to your inside world. And whatever the function of the body part is, if we start relating it back to what's going on in your life, I've now seen hundreds of cases. Joseph, the author of the book, has been through thousands of cases, and once you start tracing back the way that this works, the function of the body part, the function of whatever is not working right in you physically, and looking for what the parallel is in your emotional landscape, just connecting those dots is enough of a technique. It's amazing what happens just with that. The aha moments that happen, you relate it back and say, okay, your pain started 10 years ago and it's in this part of your body. What happened in your life 10 years ago? Who was there when it happened? And then all of a sudden a person will go, oh, that's when this happened or that happened. You know? So I'll give you a real simple example. We had a guy who had a cough. He had this tremendous cough at 7 o'clock in the morning. Every morning he'd wake up 7 o'clock and he'd just cough, cough, cough. Couldn't eat breakfast. He'd go through his coughing fit. Couldn't figure out what it was. So we go, okay, when did it start? 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. Okay. 2.5 years ago, what happened in your life? What, you know, most people will say, no, whatever, nothing, normal. And then at one point it came out that 2.5 years ago he'd received a phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning informing him that his mother had passed away during the night. He was very upset with the situation because his sisters and brothers had not been communicating with him. There was a lot of tension around this thing, you know. And what he'd done at that particular moment is he just hung up the phone and he continued to have breakfast and he went to work. So he never processed this moment properly. And every morning at 7 o'clock, he'd have this coffee fit. Well, when he connected that event with what was going on in his body, just the knowledge of that, just being able to connect it there, enacted whatever needed to happen within, again, the whole chemical system that we are, and the emotional energetic system that we are. And it all went away. His cough stopped. It just stopped. So that's one way of, you know, the first resolution is just connecting the dots to an event in your life that actually connects to what's going on in your body. So it partially answers your question, but we do have other techniques.
A friend of mine back in Ottawa, he has a Rife machine,
Oh, yeah.
and so he like cures people of all these diseases. But one thing he noticed was that people would just get another one. They just grab another one. You could cure something on the surface level, but like you said, it's the source. So that people often will worship the idea of a cure, but that's not going to really help you be self-empowered to deal with it yourself.
If you're still generating the reason for the disorder,
Yeah.
then if you're working on the energetic level and on the physical level, you can get temporary relief, absolutely. But if you keep generating it from the inside out.
So the real work is to go deeper, and then the other issue is like, wow, well that means that I have to take responsibility for what I'm creating, and it's like, that can be scary.
That can be scary, and I just want to make one little point about popular psychology and popular ideas. Popular ideas, for instance, forgiveness. We will say, oh, you just have to go back to this situation that you lived and forgive the person, and you'll be fine. No, it's helpful. It's a nice thing to do, but that's not it. What has to happen is there has to be an understanding of holding on to from that occurrence in that event. And it's not just forgiveness. Forgiveness is just a part of it. To figure out why it happened and what you're hanging on to. And so it's an interesting process. When you go into, like the Rife machine deals with frequencies, okay? It zaps. It's a frequency, virus and bacterial zapper. Rife in the 30s developed a machine that could actually zap out cancer cells. And when the Rothschilds and the medical profession and pharmaceutical companies found out that it could be taken care of that easily, they took everything away from him. They shut him down, they took his machines away, they just, it's a Tesla idea, I don't know if you know the Tesla story, same thing,
Yeah.
Tesla had all these ideas on free energy, he was generating electricity without the dams, with the wires, the Morgans, guys that own the railway lines and all the wires, said nope, put them away. Rife was another one of these stories, because what he did was, he would, if a disease was producing a certain number of bacteria or viruses, get the frequency of it and just zap out those particular bacteria or viruses, and the person wouldn't heal the person. What it does is it gives the body an advantage, because it doesn't have to kill all those bacteria and all those viruses. You have an advantage in it. So, but again, nothing happens without alignment. We call it alignment. This is one of the subtitles of the book is the art of alignment. Alignment is what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're saying, and what you're doing all have to go in the same direction. There has to be congruence there. And when you have a person who is a real congruent in those, aligning those dimensions, those different dimensions that we are, the physical, the energetic, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual being the overall body. But if we align the first four, the spiritual body's up here, but the first four is physical, energetic, emotional, and mental. And all of those, I like this idea. I think I like this idea. I'm saying, you know what, I really like this idea. I think I'm going to go do it. Chances are that's going to be a good experience. It's going to go well. It's going to be fun. But I don't know how I feel about that. I think that's stupid. Oh, I think that's okay. That sounds really nice. Let's go do it. That's misalignment, because you've got two of your bodies now. Emotional and mental are going, ah. But you're saying, oh, I'm okay with that. Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's fine. And then you go do something you don't really want to do. Guess what? You're going to get a parking ticket, you're going to have an accident, you're going to speeding ticket. You're going to have an argument, there's going to be a blowout, there's going to be something that's not going to go right because you're not aligned with it. Simple example, but that alignment has to happen in everything that we do. So there is the concept of alignment in the book, and it's aligning those five bodies, but limited amount of time. questions or comments that you guys want to
Dr. Christian Northrup in the States, in her, one of her books, she talks about how when they've opened the skull of people in their 90s and found that their brain was totally loaded with plaques and tangles, which so-called creates dementia, right?
Right.
And this person was absolutely fine, totally cognitive right until he died, right? So, and what she was saying is, what the medical system isn't aware of is that body follows mind, which is what you're saying too. The messages we give ourselves is what results in who we are.
That's right.
So it's what
Yeah,
you're saying.
and it is, and then we go one step beyond that, and that's to the overall body, which is the spiritual body, which is our purpose here. Our purpose here in this particular life, this experience, you know, and feeds the mind, which feeds emotion and energy and physical body. So that chain of events.
So are you saying then to tune in with our own personal purpose of being here in the first place?
Yeah,
How does one do it?
that's the art of listening to life. The life part is that. It's trying to find. We have little purposes in life, a bunch of mini purposes, and we have this overall purpose, and that's the one that very often people are not connected to. So when we do medical experiments like that, we cut the brain open and we look at what's going on physically there, and then we come up with explanations on how we can bypass that and how we can achieve anything we want. It's the truth, we really can. And so when we focus, that's why we're in a period, an era of isolationism. We isolate everything. So even that, one doctor might have isolated that and going, oh my God, you know, there's black stuff, all this stuff going on. And they're not connected to the overall. But Dr. Winthrop, is it?
Yeah.
She is making connections to the greater function of what's going on in us. And then we can take it one step further beyond rational mind to spirit. And then this is telling this what to do, this is telling this what to do, this is telling this what to do. There's this whole connection.
So this person that had all these plaques and tangles didn't even know about it, right? So he was totally functioning like anybody else.
Right.
So somehow they must have been then connected to their purpose in life.
They were aligned with life. They were aligned with what they were doing, aligned with their purpose.
Yeah, they found that in the nun study, I don't know, there was a large number of nuns that were studied over many years, and some of them had autopsies after they died, and found that very thing, that they were fine, you know, and they had all these plaques and tangles, right?
I actually met a man in 1979. It was one of the first holistic boat cruise in the Mediterranean. My husband and I were on, and he had actually been caught in the war by the Nazis and mistreated very badly, and so he was crippled and so forth. But he used his mind. He understood that he didn't need to be, and what he was able to do is completely become normal. But when doctors looked at his x-rays, he wasn't normal, and he shouldn't have been able to walk the way he walked, and he shouldn't have been able to do the things he could do. But I think it's the energetic field around our body overrode the physical body, and he was completely normal.
So lucky he wasn't listening to the doctors.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You see, so many people listen to the doctors. The doctors say you're gonna die in 6 months. Oh my God. I gotta put in a program now that's gonna kill me in 6 months because.
Exactly.
Sometimes right to the day.
True.
Yeah.
And I've seen the whole spectrum.
I think it's key to listen to the whole point is that we're bringing it in from spirit first, because our brains and bodies are a receiver as well as a transmitter. So where are you receiving from? Are you receiving from your ego, your little self that's like, I'm scared, I need to watch TV, and I need to have drugs, and I need to do this, and I need to be important? Are you listening to that and transmitting from there? So you can shut off the transmission and you can become a receiver. Like your book says, listening to life, you're listening to that higher spirit, you're getting that order right. So now you're going from here to here to here, and it's like coming through, and then everything's harmonious and you're in alignment. But if you're, because that's the big problem I have with like law of attraction and stuff, is people are transmitting from their ego, and they're like, okay, I gotta fix my own body, I gotta do everything myself, I gotta beat my own heart. Like, no, we don't do that, right?
No.
It comes from somewhere.
Universal intelligence is taking care of that.
Yeah, so how, it's trusting that to do everything else too. It's a faith, that's why Christians have it right in a lot of ways. They say, I'm not the creator of my life, there's a larger intelligence here. So they personify a God and blah, blah, blah. But it's right in the way that there is a larger intelligence that we're all drawing from, or we should be, but most of us are blocking it off and coming from this mind that's like become a monster. Like it's completely programmed by everything, and it's this transmitter. And sure, if you focus really hard, you could make anything happen, but it's not necessarily in the highest interest of anybody. You know, like getting a lot of money or getting healing this disease. Like, I gotta figure it out, I gotta go to a psychologist. It's not necessarily what's gonna heal you. It could address some symptoms or whatever, but it's still coming from that little self that's trying to figure it all out. But I think if, like you were talking about, the order coming from the spirit first, and then, so it's like letting go and listening, always listening and paying attention. What is anything saying to you? What's the body saying? What is, sometimes people see a word on a billboard and it speaks to them, or anything.
Sometimes you see it right at the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right in that moment.
If you're listening.
I needed that.
Yeah,
Well done.
but the world's always talking to you, and the Spirit's always talking to you, but we're just never listening, and that's what I think is key to understand. Because it's very scary to try to tell someone, you need to figure out what is wrong with you and why it's wrong with you. To tell the ego that is absolutely terrible.
Well, that's just faulty vocabulary, absolutely.
Yeah,
Because
and most
right
people are
away
like, oh
you're
God, I
saying,
gotta figure this out. So they go to a psychologist and they go, okay, bring me back and repress me so that I can understand from birth why I'm anxious. It's like, that's a tall order for people. They spend
well, it's a
thousands of
tall
dollars.
order, yeah, for sure.
And they spend, so much fear and energy on it, but if they could just listen in every moment, healing can occur. All that can be deconstructed if you can just listen and just pay attention, and that's it. You don't have to go to all these psychologists or hook yourself up to machines.
You shouldn't go to
take
psychologists,
pills.
actually. They're the most lagging department of the university.
Well, some people find
They're still
healing.
studying, Carl Jung and Freud, who was a sick man himself. And it's like, that's the foundation to our psychology today. It's like,
But they can unravel some of it. Like, they take them back to, like you were saying, connecting those dots. Well, where did this come from? Well, it came from in childhood. I was beaten in this circumstance, and now I have a pain in my knee. Like, that's all just so, it's just so small when you can just go, okay, I surrender the self, and I'm just gonna listen and become a receiver. And then you're just like a radio that's receiving rather than transmitting this garbly goop that just causes these disharmonious lives. And if you can just let go and listen to everything, always.
I think
That's
that
the challenge.
there's still an interaction, so you can't say, you can just listen and take in and not put out. It's what a person's putting in.
But
'Cause
when you're listening, it's
Exactly.
like it programs the transmission.
Sure, so that your transmission going outward is actually more balanced and to a point, right? And again, when it comes to purpose, life purpose and dreams and all of that, it has to be something virtuous, it has to be something good. It has to serve yourself, but it has to serve others as well. So for instance, my dream is I want to make a lot of money. It doesn't work because that's just, or it can. It can. What if a person's actual dream of having money is to create wonderful things to help the poor and help everyone else? Well, then
But that would come from a different place. Would
that's
come
coming
that
from a
higher
different place, but what people look at is just that, the money flow, because we're so attached to this physical realm. It's just ridiculous.
Well, it
Popular
usually
culture
comes
is
from that
ridiculous.
fearful little self that's like, oh, I need to be important, I need to have lots, and they wanna have a lot to be something more.
Yeah. And another thing to really be careful of is that victim mentality that popular psychology is still hooked on. It's really hooked on that. Well, I was beat up when I was hurt when I was 5 years old. And then the person goes into the victim mentality. As soon as you go into victim mentality, there is no fixing anything, because that's just a closed loop. And that's part of the gobbledygook that you're talking about, right?
You're transmitting from.
Maybe what all one really needs to do is with one's thoughts, just ask, is this a loving thought? Once you get, it's like an intuition really, where you're looking at, if you've got a negative thought or you're criticizing someone else for whatever reason,
Yeah.
is this a loving thought? No, because you can't criticize another without criticizing yourself.
Yourself.
You know, everything's interconnected.
That's right.
So once you just start questioning over time, is this a loving thought? Then you actually get to see yourself. And let go of what you don't need.
Yeah, it's very important. The self-talk, how you talk to yourself, what you say about yourself, all those thoughts, all those ideas. Be careful what you wish for.
I have to tell you that I am a psychologist, and that psychologists are psychologists are studying happiness and mindfulness and other things right now, and that's, I heard,
The real, yeah, absolutely.
very much into mindfulness, and that's,
Yeah.
so we're not totally stuck.
No, I actually, it's just that in the world of academics, it's great that there are people, investigating the new ideas, but the books that they're using and some of the stuff in some of the universities is surprising.
Oh, yeah,
Lagging it is,
Absolutely, and one of the things about universities, I was listening to a program this morning, they were talking about all the people in China and other parts of Asia with Japan and whatnot, that were coming to our universities at this point, and while it's a mixed kind of thing, I think it ultimately is a very good thing, because I think those people will have a big positive influence on our way of thinking. Another thing I wanted to say about that is I have a minor physical problem. I went to the medical clinic, and my doctors, I was asking me what's been going on in my life, and I said, well, nothing, not anything very big. She said, well, I'm wondering if what's happening isn't partly a stress response, and I said, oh, I don't do stress, and she said, well, I think your body does. And I was so happy that she said that, right? I mean, that was absolutely true.
And that's huge. If there's one, thought that I could leave you guys with is exactly that, is that the body is a separate entity. The body records everything we ever go through in our lives, and it is actually an incredible organism, disconnected from the mind, the body itself. So, I
And
like
it was
that.
just good to hear that a doctor said that, right?
Yeah.
And she's a young doctor.
And there's such a great percentage of doctors, that are just fantastic in making so many connections. It's just unfortunate that we have so many who are still hooked on prescriptions, right? I mean, I have a good friend that was kicked out of the clinic on the corner over here years ago because she was not prescribing enough drugs. I mean, that was the answer. You have to leave this clinic because you are not prescribing enough drugs. It's like, and she showed us books. She had books where if you sell another so many $1,000s of this, you get a free golf trip to Hawaii. You have all these incentives coming from the pharmaceutical companies. It's like, and I'm dealing with my parents right now. And my mother, Elaine Dupuis and Al Aurélien Dupuis, they don't buy into the drug thing. My father, he'll go to the doctor say, well, we're going to do this test, we're going to do this, we're going to take this. And my father goes, I'm just going to let nature take its course. And the doctor goes, well, we should take these tests. Nah. He's 87 years old.
Wow.
He's going well, right? And so there's so many houses they go into, and there'll be all the little bottles of pills, all these stuff that people are having to take. And so I'm proud to say that my parents, very few of those bottles. My mother will get the prescription, and the piece of paper will be on the table, and we just sit there, and eventually it expires. And she's very healthy. So that's the problem is when we have great faith in a medical profession that's actually corrupt itself. It's like, oh. And it's too bad because we've got people with such compassion. People who became doctors because they're compassionate beings and they just want to help others. And some of them can maintain that vision and that purpose.
Mhm.
And some of them just end up getting programmed into this other thing. That's where the conflict is.
I know we're closing the group, but just on that note, it's amazing what's happening in the field of science, and especially right now, researching the gut intelligence. So our science is taking us full circle into realizing that we're the creators. So it's like that's the good part, and there's a lot of doctors that are getting this. So that's like right on, good for them.
Mhm. Nice to see that evolution and change. Yeah.
Well, I guess we need to close pretty soon.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for that. And are you doing workshops in Nelson at some point?
Well, we just finished a whole fall run, and Joseph, the author, has gone back to Spain. But we have a whole bunch planned from April through June. So a whole bunch of spring stuff. So aside from that, it's the book and the internet, see what we're doing there. But physically, we'll be doing workshops in the spring.
And do you have books to sell with you?
I do. Yeah, I do.
And how much are they?
They're $20.
Oh, great, I have $20 on me.
Yeah, they're, so yeah, this 270 pages of joy. It was really good. The translation of this book was something I translated 4 years ago. And it's been a fantastic process in just internalizing a lot of these concepts and ideas. And the nice thing about the book is it's got a lot of examples, real life examples. The guy with the cough, his example is in here. And when you see these concrete examples, because we learn a lot through what other people experience. I mean, we're compassionate beings, we're all one. And because we're all one, that's why stupid movies like Jackass, which is a movie about people hurting themselves, doing stupid things, and then they hurt themselves, and here you are, other time, other place, watching it on TV, person gets hurt, and you go, ow. What is that? That's that connection to quantum field, that connection to all that information that's there. We're connected all the time. And in fact, I see a huge difference in the awareness of today. In fact, 30 years ago, when you wanted to talk about this kind of thing, there were a lot of closed minds. Today, everybody's into it. Everybody's curious. Even Mexico, like I said, 99% Catholic. And they're still open to these ideas. So there's this connection and this information field, which is referred to sometimes as the quantum field, morphic resonance, all that sort of thing. We're connected to it. And so we feel other people's pain. And that's how, because we're all connected to that same thing. So that's why learning through these other people's stories is interesting, because we see how they got through it, and that helps us get through whatever it is that we're going through. It's interesting.
How do you explain that when you're watching the TV and they're showing you, probably for the second or third time, the same clip of somebody in dire distress who's in Aleppo or something like that? And I look at that and I think, that's not happening. That's just a movie on the screen. It happens to be my TV. You said that on the quantum field, if that was happening right here, right now, somebody's on the floor because they're going through an agony of some sort, we could all feel it, our energy would be directed to do something about it. But when we watch these things on TV, what type of emotion is it being engendered there by what is actually just a picture on a screen? It's nothing at that particular time is happening. It was taken as something that happened,
Right.
but it's not happening now.
Well, I can answer that.
Is it-
Well, time isn't linear like that we have universal body language we pick up on fields. But that's my answer.
Well, there's two things happening there. First off, when you see it on the screen, which is not the moment it's happening, it happened. You do have a reaction, right? Some people will feel the pain. Oh, so there will be a relationship to it. But what's really most important is that experience, and is what happening out there relevant to your personal story? Is it relevant to what's going on in your life? There's a big impact, there's a big difference there, see? So if you have that person where it's happening right here, this is relevant to your experience, this is relevant to your life right now. So it's going to be part of everything that's going on. When it's remote like that, it's not, we feel something the first time, maybe not the second, third, fourth time you see it, right?
But before I say,
Yeah.
you're
So
amazing
at that
Yeah.
point, yeah, okay. First time you might have a little reaction because yes, we're still connected and we still feel what that person would have felt to some degree. But the problem with our international news network and system right now is it's connected to a whole bunch of stories that are not relevant to our experience. And people fill themselves with all this stuff, and it actually ends up being anxiety, it ends up being angst, it ends up being, you know, sort of a, and say, oh, but you know, we need to know about these things, it's important for us to be aware. No, it's not. What's most important is your own story and your own experience. And we are all cells in a greater body. If we concentrate on making all our cells healthy, the overall body will be healthy. But we can only start from center outward.
I think the crux of what you're saying as well is that there can be somebody who's in pain right in front of us, and not everyone will react. And there's this sense that from the time we're born and we're immersed in this world and trying to work with a belief system that helps us thrive and live, we're developing belief systems about what is the relationship and how we need to behave to stay safe. And when we grow up, those belief systems are often still operating on an unconscious level. So we can have somebody in front of us, but we've been trained and subconsciously believe that I don't need to see that or engage in it because I'll be vulnerable. So much of the healing work is opening to the alignment, but for me, the focus has often been looking at the ways in which I'm shut off from letting that flow, because that flow is natural. And that's every cell in me wants that. But on a ego level, I have the defenses that have been built in our subconscious, and that's, I think, why we can't do that healing work alone. We need other people because we're programmed not to see what we're subconsciously or unconsciously carrying. That happens in relationship. Anyway, so yeah, that's
Cultural programming and education, belief systems that we're not even aware of, as you mentioned. A lot of it being subconscious, it's just enacted. You know, so
desensitizing.
it's desensitizing. Sometimes the rational mind might say, I don't need to help this person because the ambulance will be here in a second, so
Or you've just seen so much of it.
I don't need to get involved. So what did the person do there? They didn't buy into any compassion, but they justified it through a mental process. Oh, someone will be along there. A professional will be, I can't touch it. Our society's programmed us, you can't even help that person. You're liable if you touch that person else. You know, oh my God, now you're going to court and they're gonna put you in jail for helping someone. I mean, we're really living in a sick society right now. Because Krishnamurti said there's nothing, being adjusted to a sick society is not being healthy, right? So being, you know, and we, you know, being adjusted to a sick society makes us what? Well, makes us a little bit sick. And that's why we have so many problems.
Can you stick around for a little while? I noticed that when something really interesting is going on, we can stay here a long time. If you can stick around for a while and you get a chance to sell some books, people can ask you questions
Sure,
personally.
yeah, no,
Okay, that would be great.
to hang out with you guys.
Thanks
Thank
for-
you.
Thanks, man.